Our transgender children and family members and friends are beautiful and beloved, living their authentic lives. Oh my goodness, that's an amazing truth, amazing stories, and amazing beauty. False teachings, binary thinking, denial can cause us to miss it all, and cause great harm to those we love.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Welcome, one and all. I sound like some sort of announcer at a Renaissance fair. Welcome, one and all, to the
circus.
FreedHearts. Are we circus to you? We are off to our typical wonderful start. Welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. My name is Robert Cottrell, and I'm here with
Susan Cottrell.
Oh, we're so glad I'm so glad you're here, Susan.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here too, Robert.
It wouldn't be the same without you. Of course not.
No.
And we're glad you're with us too. Thank you so much for giving us these few minutes of time every week, or usually every week, and really appreciate it. As a reminder, please share, subscribe, and support if you can. Connect with us. It's all at freedhearts.org. We are going to talk today about don't deny the beauty of being transgender. I want to start with reading a quote. She says, "I am the mother of a transgender child. This year has grown me quickly into an advocate despite my fears. I want you to know that I listen to your podcast daily leading up to a school board meeting at which I signed up to speak about transgender kids amidst all the opposition to affirming policies. I want you to know that your podcast helped to strengthen me so that I was able to remain calm and steadfast in a very scary and hurtful room. Now the courage seems to have caught on, and many are now wanting to speak out in support of the transgender community. God is truly using you, and the Spirit is moving. I can't wait to see where this journey takes me." And she talked more about how the hate was so visceral in that room, so strong, that friends had to surround her in support and in protection. What that situation represents is the hate that's out there and the power of an affirming voice.
And don't let anybody tell you, no, there's no hate. We just disagree. No.
Yeah. That example represents the hate and the power of an affirming voice. On social media, we often share a photo of the amazing Rebecca Bruselhoff. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Jamie. When she was younger, holding a sign that says, "I am the scary transgender person the media warns you about."
Powerful.
That represents the lies and misinformation out there, stoking fears for personal gain. An example of that is the bathroom laws, in Houston, the transgender protection law that was easily on its way to passing until the narrative was changed to somehow be about scary transgender people in your children's bathrooms. And it's just
horrifying.
So the stats for this are sadly kind of endless. But one that always sticks with me that we repeat often is that 50% of transgender youth...
57%.
57% of transgender youth without affirming parents attempt suicide. And when even one parent is supportive, that number drops to 4%.
Which is the national average.
Right. That represents the power of a parent's love or lack of love.
Yep.
Now, this issue is layered, as we all are. Beautifully diverse stories, as they should be, as we talked last week about that. We don't fit into binaries because we're made in the image of God, and God doesn't fit into gender binaries. So they're beautifully diverse stories, as they should be, but it comes against the binary thinking that is so much part of our entire society and can even come into play in the LGBTQ community.
LGB community.
In the entire community, as far as against each other there. That binary thinking, well, you're either this or you're that, and if you're this or you're that, then you have to be this, but you can't be that. That comes in there as well. There's so much that we're learning, so much we need to learn. And in this conversation, probably last week and maybe today, we will likely say some things wrong or maybe the wrong way or miss a point or two. And if you've noticed some of those, please email us, help us learn. We love that. But you know our hearts. I hope you know our hearts. So we want to talk about this. Last episode, we talked about how the Bible affirms transgender people. And this episode, we're going to talk about, so now what? Now, what do we do? The condemnation, according to non-affirming Christians, the condemnation was such a, quote, slam dunk. But now that's gone. We deconstructed that last week. That doesn't hold water anymore. That's gone. So what do we do now? How do we move forward in love and full affirmation as parents, as family, as friends, as allies?
And let's be clear, the condemnation only felt like a slam dunk. They only used
to them
excuses.
It was. Yes,
we just pulled those crutches out from under them.
Good point.
Yeah. So in our last episode, we talked about being transgender, and we did a little imagination exercise to help get some insight and compassion, which is always a good place to start for people whose religion actually requires of them insight and compassion. Yeah. So, and
there's a lot of things you hear that what the Christian faith requires. You don't hear insight and compassion as on that list very often.
Right.
You know, you can't dance, can't watch Harry Potter, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But insight and compassion don't usually make the top 10.
And just to refresh your memory, it was the closet. Pretend all your clothes were gone and you were wearing somebody else's clothes, specifically somebody of a gender you don't identify with, and how you would feel. So, and we deconstructed some of the false biblical narrative that people continually throw up. And throw up is exactly what I want to do when I hear these mean and indefensible arguments and lies. So, but today, thanks for the sound effects.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's why I'm here.
So today we'll take it deeper and we'll talk a little bit about denial.
The river in Egypt?
It's not a river in Egypt. It is, but it's not just a river in Egypt.
We're going to talk about denial.
People got it, I think.
Again, that's why I'm here. Mansplaining as much as I possibly can.
I know. I always bring it to your attention.
That sounded a little too familiar. I know.
It's just, Okay, anyway. So there's a mom in our group who fully supports her trans son, but the grandmother is in denial. She's 88, and she uses the wrong pronouns. She uses the dead name because
Can you explain that again? For those of you
the
who've not
dead
heard
name
that
is the name that is not the chosen name, that the transgender person has put that aside and chosen a new name. And she says how she misses her, the child that was the previous gender and identified as. And the therapist was listening to this mom talk about her mother, and she said, so your mom loves someone who doesn't exist. How does that work out for her?
I love that.
It's funny. I mean, it is. It's straight up denial. It's covering your ears and saying, la, 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 which doesn't work out well at all for grandma or for anyone around her. But if she could move on beyond denial, she could grieve her loss, which would really be helpful to resolve all the feelings she has or would have if she could face them, all these unresolved feelings. So I want to say,
it's interesting because when you cover your ears and talk, sometimes you can't hear what you're saying.
Totally.
And so it's like when you're being ignorant or unwilling, you're essentially covering your ears. You're not even aware. You don't even hear it like it really is, like it really sounds.
I see.
And that's not to excuse it away by any means, because again, when you know better, then you do better. But it's just interesting.
I see what you mean, though. You're saying not just you can't hear the other person, you can't even hear yourself.
You can't really hear what you really sound like.
Did you hear what you just said?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I want to say to parents out there or grandparents that I know this is not always easy. I really do. Our own child is gender nonconforming. And you may have heard us talk about our daughter, Annie, who is now gender non-binary and uses they, them pronouns and the name Ash. So I know this is not easy. And their spouse also uses they, them pronouns and is trans feminine. So as parents, to develop new habits around pronouns and names is a challenge. It is, but you're rethinking everything you've always known about them. And that's a challenge. Even as aware as we've become in this journey, and many of you parents have become on this journey, it still can be a challenge. It's because we have to recalibrate our thinking about this child we've known for 31 years.
And I want to say, too, that, I make mistakes. I make mistakes with names and pronouns almost every day, several times a day. But Ash and Elle know my heart. And your children don't beat yourself up over that. We need to do what we need to do to to honor that and to use that. But if you occasionally make mistakes on that, your children are forgiving.
Yeah,
I talk
and
about
it's
this
good
in
to
the
acknowledge the mistake and say, "Oops,
yes.
oops," and change it. Say the right one.
Right. That's very different from going, no, I'm not going, that's just a very different thing. But I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of parents out there, a lot of dads sometimes too, that I hear this in the dads group. They're so hard on themselves.
Yes,
And I don't want
yes,
them to be. So,
that's right. But I wanted to talk about something that Ash recently said that I think may be really helpful for parents who are going through this. We were actually both on a panel for
at the Q Christian
yeah,
Fellowship, yeah,
that's right. And it was just in 2020, and it was the Ask Anything Trans Non-Binary and Gender Expansive Panel.
non binary. Yeah.
Non-binary.
Ask it. That's a girl.
2020 Parent Summit. Yeah.
Ask anything. Trans, non binary, and gender expensive. That opens up a
That opens up
lot.
the doors,
Yeah.
yes. So, and we're usually not even on these kind of things
You and
together.
Ash. You and Ash.
Yeah. But we just happened to be, and Ash was a panelist and I was the moderator. So anyway, here's something Ash said. They said one of the things my parents did, us, was they trusted me. They trusted the person they knew me to be and didn't immediately think I was corrupt or something. And when I gave them resources, they took those seriously and not only read them, but came back with thoughts from what they had read. They came back with resources they had found. They demonstrated that they were digging in alongside me and not just, okay, but they were committed to understanding and to affirming my sexuality and eventually my gender and doing their own research and taking what I asked them to seriously. That means a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't say this to pat ourselves on the back, but to show that your child just wants to be known. I mean, that's a revelation that they said that. Your child just wants to be known, to be seen, to be trusted, taken seriously. And that's what you do when you love somebody. That's how you treat somebody that you love.
That's what sacrificial love is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's to set aside, especially because this is probably something that I know that, at least for our child, that they dealt with and thought about and worked through way before they ever told us.
Yes.
And we get this new news as parents, and what we're now the authority
Right. Right.
on what
Exactly.
they should be.
Exactly. And just a little toss in here too that don't expect it. A lot of parents, I know in our parents group, say, well, okay, well, now what are you? Like they want the category, they want to define it. And if you say, well, you were gender non binary before, now you're transmasculine, it's like, well, right. And it's morphing, and that's okay for it to morph, but it challenges our category Western
Yeah.
brains.
Every time somebody does that to a child, it really undermines everything. It says, I don't really trust who you are. I don't trust what you're going through. I think it's kind of a joke. Like what's the trend today? Bell bottoms, or what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
it
You're not
totally
even competent to judge your own experience.
right. Don't
Yeah,
do
those
that
things
to
aren't
your
true.
child or your friend or your
Self
spouse or
or yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
So, and another person on that same panel, interestingly named Asher, as it happened, said this. He's transmasculine and said, if you can't condone the decisions I've made to be called Asher and to use he, him, his pronouns and to take hormones, then you can't affirm my life. This isn't a decision. It's who I am. And it's what allows me to thrive in the world. With all due respect, I can't believe that you love me if you want me to remain in a way that is death dealing to me and makes me feel suicidal and fills me with shame. To me, the process of transitioning was the process of realizing how much God loves everyone because I finally realized, like, oh, life doesn't have to feel hard all the time. I'm actually able to love people more when I'm living into myself. So it's tough to continue to run into that sort of rejecting attitude at church.
Wow, that's so powerful.
So powerful. I mean, and see, that's the thing. It's church people talk a lot about doing the hard thing, doing what God requires, but they're talking about other people, trans people, LGBTQ people doing the hard thing while they do the easy thing, which is to not examine their existing beliefs and continue to deny someone else's reality and lived experience and not sacrifice anything.
Yeah, and when Asher said in there, I can't believe that if you love me, you'd want me to remain in a way that's a death dealing. Why do they want Asher to remain in a way that's death dealing? Because they don't want to wrestle with this.
Right.
They don't want to give the binaries. It's like, okay, you die, so I don't have to be uncomfortable.
Right.
That's harsh, but that's
It's
the way
kind of
it
like,
is.
I can imagine a trans person, if they're able to get their legs under them enough, just when somebody says, oh, I don't, blah, 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 trans, and you're like, oh, I understand. This is something you haven't really looked into yet, isn't it? Like the burden's on them.
Yeah, that's
if they haven't looked into it, that's theirs, not yours.
Well, it's like saying, okay, I know God wants me to sacrifice. Therefore, okay, here's how I'll sacrifice. I'll sacrifice my child. God says, no, wait, no. I want you to sacrifice your certainty, your religion, not your religion, but
Your religiosity.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
your hubris, your unexamined beliefs, your false beliefs, which you don't know are false because they're unexamined. Hello? Take a walk with me, God will say, and let me help you sort it out. I don't ask you to sacrifice someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like if mom says, Tommy, you've got too many toys in your room. I want you to sacrifice.
First, there aren't too many toys.
Yes, there are.
I'm sorry. Can you go back and start that again?
So it's like if mom says, Tommy, you've got too many toys in your room. I want you to be sacrificial here. Go get some of your toys and we'll take them to the shelter. And Tommy comes back in 10 minutes with a whole pile of his brother's toys.
I love Tommy. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And mom says, no, that's not what I asked you. Your brother's toys are not your sacrifice.
Okay.
Let's start again. Yeah, Tommy. And to refuse to budge on the reality of transgender people is not your sacrifice, but theirs. So let's start again. And Asher also talked about during this panel about his mother initially not being affirming of him as transgender. I understand it takes a minute, but he said to her, was it hard for you when I went to seminary? Because girls weren't supposed to go to seminary and I was transitioning. And his mother said, honey, what was hard for me was not knowing whether you were going to make it. And Asher said she was referring to the years that I was depressed and anxious and suicidal. And she said, anything compared to that is easy. And parents, that's what we need to keep in mind. Anything that we have to sacrifice for our child, why wouldn't we? That's nothing compared to watching your child die on the vine because we will not be there with them. How else do you bear one another's burdens? I know I'm preaching the choir here, as they say, but that's our job, is to sacrifice.
And whatever
our certainty,
And whatever we have to sacrifice, certainty, beliefs, binary thinking, the boxes that we have various things in, even the uncomfortableness of dealing with a non-affirming pastor or friend or family members, it doesn't even come close to what our transgender children have to go through.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah. And people are depressed and anxious and suicidal when those around them, those closest to them, deny their reality, deny their lived experience, deny them. And anyone so denied would feel that way.
Yeah. And you know what? The meanness in all of this, and I know you said you wanted to talk about this, but the meanness in this is awful.
Awful.
And it's in the name of religion. You've tacked God onto it. So God is a meanie.
Yeah, someone told me about something that happened in his church. He said, the Baptist preacher was telling about a Christian teacher in public school who got fired after he refused to address a non-binary student by their preferred pronoun. And then a judge reinstated them. He said, you should have heard the thunderous applause and amens from the congregation. It was unnerving. And this is a man who said, I'm a gay cisgender man. And cisgender means not transgender. And he wrote me because he said, I don't know the issues well enough to counter the so-called biblical argument that you're either male or female, which we talked about that last episode.
Yeah. By the way, don't forget, neither is God. So
Right,
And we're made in
exactly.
God's image, so neither we.
Right.
And the whole thing too about Adam and all that was just brilliant. If you somehow missed last week, go back and listen
Yeah.
to it because
It's worth it.
it really deconstructs that whole
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling, sweetheart, love of my life, amazing
Yeah.
inspiration of my life, that you had a response.
Yeah. Yeah, because this guy knows enough as a gay man to know what meanness looks like and feels like. And even if he doesn't know all the arguments, but here's what I said to him. I said, first of all, what a shame. The meanness is appalling. And I said, if they're not interested in learning anything new, then to talk to them will be to waste your breath, really. And the best reasoned arguments in the world will fall on deaf ears if somebody is not open to hearing it. And I wasted a lot of breath with a family member on this one, a few family members.
Yeah. Now, I know, and again, we know that you have interactions out there with people too. And please remember to be careful. Don't debate people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And as we said, sometimes it's best we start these episodes and we say share, subscribe, and support. We have 3 more S's. I don't know what it is, but it's best to speak a truth, share a resource, and sashay away.
That's my favorite part,
I love
sashay
that.
away.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, me too.
Yes.
But hearts are being moved. Hearts are being moved,
Yes.
and you will find openings. So
people are finding that this is what they've done has not worked.
Well, yeah. I mean, a couple things. They're finding that what
listening.
they've done has not worked. They're seeing the impact that this has on the transgender and the entire LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And they're saying this can't be the way. So let's try. Oh, I know. Let's try welcoming but not affirming. Well, that's just as deadly and damaging.
Right.
So it doesn't work. So they're saying what
else can we do?
So they're opening their boxes. And we want to give you some reasoning here.
Yeah,
some good reasoning and 4 points, right?
Yeah,
4
points.
To help you find yourself, or to help you if you find yourself interacting with others whose hearts appear to maybe be open a little bit.
So, number 1, the golden rule demands that we treat people the way we want to be treated, period. Jesus was crystal clear about this. We want to say the Bible is clear. Jesus was crystal clear about this. Nobody wants to be treated the way the trans community has been treated. Nobody. That should be the end of the conversation. Whatever you may know or don't know, Christian that we're talking to, if you're not treating this community with kindness, with empathy, not hearing their stories, then you are in the wrong, period. That really is a litmus test. Instead, Christians and religious people have actively harmed this community. But we're the ones in the wrong when we do that. We owe our fellow human beings at least that we first do no harm.
Yep, done. That's it. That's all we need, right?
Yep, we really don't need more. But if you do need more, here's number 2. Even though gender identity appears to be a binary, and I see that it looks like that, it isn't.
We talked about this at length last week.
We did. Intersex people are evidence of that. They often present with a widely varying and ambiguous sex palette of characteristics. Are you going to say if they're male or female? Are you going to tell them that you know better than their internal workings? Are you going to know that you know all of that going on for them? No. Or what they know in their heart about themselves? Do you know better than that? And are you going to tell them that they don't exist? At what point do you admit that this is above your pay grade? How much of God's role are we going to take here?
Well, that's a huge hubris issue right there. And,
huge.
And non-affirming Christians do it all the time.
Yes.
All the time. So.
And we're all subject to filling in the gaps on people whose stories we have not lived. But this is especially deadly.
Yeah. As we get to number 3, you'll hear in this conversation, well, God created male and female. God made marriage one man, one woman.
Okay. Number 3. We talked about this last episode, but I'm going to sum it up here. When Genesis 1 talks about God creating one man, one woman, that is a rhetorical tool meant to define both ends of a category and everything in between.
I love the Alpha and Omega example.
Yeah, exactly.
A to Z, but not just
Jesus
A and
is
Z.
only A and Z, period. That's the same argument. And Genesis also says that God created day and night, but we don't deny dawn and dusk. We don't run back into the house yelling, abomination, when the sun sets. No, And the same with gender. Intersex and many other examples prove the category, and we need to listen to transgender, gender nonconfirming, genderqueer stories instead of denying them.
Key word there is listen.
Listen,
to
yes.
stories. Yeah.
There's a gal that posted something that I loved. It's Luna Allery Cardio. She said, being trans is like getting a Lego set, but then realizing the instructions are clearly for another Lego set entirely, but you don't have any other instructions. So you just kind of have to work with what you got while looking at the picture on the box. That's exactly
Wow.
right. We've had a
That's
lot
great.
of Legos in our house, and we know exactly what that looks like.
That I can relate to that one.
Yeah.
Wow. So one more, number 4.
And number 4 is we as a community are deeply hurting the transgender community more than we have any understanding of. If you're a person who claims a label of a Christian or says you follow Jesus, or you know someone who is, it is your job as conveyors of astoundingly good news, which is what gospel means, to stop conveying astoundingly bad news, which is you aren't a human being. You aren't who you think you are. Every experience you're existing in is you don't know. It's wrong. We need to humble ourselves to listen to people's stories, to discover the pain that we've collectively caused, and to make a new choice. We need to learn better and we need to do better. We need to grow in this area because it is causing incredible pain, and amening about it. That is unconscionable. And then we put God's name on it. How dare we take God's name in vain like this? Yeah.
Big breath. Okay.
That was a big sigh.
Well, these last 2 episodes have been really wonderful. I mean, I hope they are to you as well. They've been so insightful. So if we are preaching to the choir, we hope we've increased your knowledge. And if we're just reminding you of things, we hope that it's strengthened you to know that you are on the right side. You are walking in the light, walking in the truth. You're on the right side of history, right side of God's heart. You are on the right track. You're all good there. If you are part of the transgender community, then we hope that these 2 weeks have helped you know just how beautiful and amazing and beloved you are.
Yes.
Or maybe I'm talking about your child if your child is transgender. But I want to wrap this up here by telling you something else that our Ash said on the Q Christian panel, because I think it's profound. Do you want to read that? I know you have that there too.
Yeah, yeah. They said, don't be afraid of the journey that your child is on. The unknown can look like a barren desert, but it's actually full of life, and it is full of allies and resources and folks who know exactly what your child is going through and who know exactly what you're going through. So just as you've been doing with their whole life, when you send them to school and when you trust them to move out on their own and when you trust them to go get something from the kitchen counter by themselves, all the ways you've trusted your child, continue to trust your child and to trust God with them.
Oh,
wow, that gives me goosebumps.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
We love our Ash.
We love our Ash and all of our children and this whole community. And if you are a parent who's wrestling with this and you haven't reached out to us, please do. We've got online groups that will help you of other parents who are going down the same road. Please, we'd love to connect you.
And if you're part of a family that has disowned you over this, we have chosen family community as well. We have vibrant community wherever you are on this journey, whoever you are. So please reach out to us at Susan or hello at FreedHearts.org. So you know what? That's what Ash just said was beautiful, and they're beautiful, and you're beautiful, and our transgender children and family members and friends are beautiful. Beautiful. That diversity, that richness of diversity is stunningly beautiful. And they're beloved and they're living authentic lives. And that's an amazing truth, an amazing story, an amazing beauty. Please don't miss that in yourself, in your child, in those you love. We love you.
We love you.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday, so I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant community for you at www.freedhearts.org. Just come say hello. And if you have questions or issues or comments about the podcast, things you'd like us to talk about, reach out to us at podcast@freedhearts.org. The music is provided by Hannah Cottrell, our daughter, the Grammy-nominated Saint Sinner, and you can find out more about her at heysaintsinner.com. Please share this, subscribe, and follow on your favorite platform, and thanks for listening.